Hello and welcome. I am Tiberius, and today I'm continuing my interview series about getting into cybersecurity. I'm joined by Tanya Janca, also known as SheHacksPurple. Tanya is a best-selling author of Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, the AppSec Antics card game, and the soon-to-be-released Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. Throughout her 28-year IT career, she has won several awards, spoken all over the planet, and trained thousands of software developers and IT security professionals. She's widely considered a leading international authority on software security and currently leads education and community for SEMGREP. Tanya, welcome to my channel, and thank you for being here to share your knowledge and experiences with us.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me, Tiberius.
So this interview series has so far focused on getting into cybersecurity at an industry level, but one of the reasons I wanted you on is your books especially are very much aimed at people who need to know about cybersecurity to perform their jobs, but wouldn't describe themselves as working in cybersecurity, by which I mean software developers, project managers, system designers, etc. You actually began your career as a software developer. So how did you get introduced to cybersecurity, and what motivated you to transition into cybersecurity itself?
So I kind of switched into cybersecurity twice, which sounds really weird. So I was a software developer and I applied for a job at the Department of Justice to write a really advanced search algorithm to sort through evidence. And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And then I got there and they're like, so actually, we just wanted to attract someone really smart to do counterterrorism work. And so I ran a top secret bunker and did a lot of things I'm not allowed telling you about. But I learned a lot about cybersecurity. And I also had a lot of nightmares because counterterrorism is terrifying. And I decided after a year and a half, I got really bad burnout. And I decided that I just wasn't tough enough to work in cybersecurity. So I left and went back to software development and was awesome at that. And that was in maybe like 2006 to 2007. And so then I did more software development. And I had a lot of interactions with the security team that were not awesome, like them saying no to everything I wanted to do as a nice little dev. And then in around maybe 2012, I met this friend and he was in a band. And you may not know, but I was a professional musician for 17 years and I played music in all the bars around Ottawa where I lived. And that's why I release silly music videos now. And I did comedy and acting because I was like, how could I make less money than music? Turns out it's possible. But then, so our bands had to play together, obviously, like what else could we do? And he was a pen tester. And we became friends and he kept saying for a year and a half, man, you'd be such a good pen tester, man. He used the word man a lot. And he just kept pestering me to try it. And so after a year and a half, I'm like, well, I'll read a book. Well, I'll do this. And so then he's like, I want you to be my apprentice. I want to teach you. You're going to be amazing. And so for a year, I did his little apprenticeship program, which to be quite blunt, was reading the Web App Hacker's Handbook, reading the Shellcode Hacker's Handbook, learning Burp Suite on my own via videos on YouTube, having him yell at me a lot, having him get me to do a live pen test that I did not know that the client didn't know it was me, and other things that were not ethical, which eventually I was like, oh, this is not good. And we split off. But during that time, I also joined OAuth. And the OAuth chapter leader was amazing. And he's still one of my professional mentors. And he taught me about ethics. And then I met another person named Adrian, and he became my second professional mentor. And between those three, I ended up moving, like getting enough experience at my current job. So I was a software developer to switch to the security team. And then after responding to incidents for a few months, I showed them like, listen, it's costing us this much to respond to the incidents, but it'll cost us way less to fix them in advance. So why don't you let me launch an AppSec program? So I did that. And then I got my first full-time pen testing job. And I discovered I'm better at AppSec. I know. And I had like the whole community kind of rallying around me, helping me. Like when I went for my pen testing interview, the guy's just like, you don't have enough experience, go away. I'm like, well, I'll never get experience if you don't give me some. And he's like, no. And so then my mentor interviewed there too, because they were building this big team. And he's like, I won't come unless you hire Tanya. And like, I'm pretty lucky to have someone that would do
That's
that for
awesome.
me. Yeah. And so I always recommend people that are trying to get into security that they try to find a professional mentor. And I believe that you are also on the same wavelength as me for such things.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's part of the reason I've been doing these interviews as well is like I just want to get more people involved in cybersecurity anyway, and have people find mentors. So I think that's incredibly important.
That was what my podcast was about, the SheHacksPurple podcast. We interviewed people from, I didn't know you yet because I would have dragged you on. It was like all different jobs in information security and what they are. Because when I joined Tiberius, I foolishly thought there were 3 jobs. There was the firewall dude, and that looked boring. There was the risk dude, that looked boring. And then there's the pen tester dude, that looked exciting. I did not know that there is AppSec, there's incident response, that you could be SOC analyst, that you could be a threat hunter, that you could do reverse engineering. I did not know any of those things existed. So what you're doing is very important.
Well, I'm glad. But pen testing's still very cool. I'll say that. I have to say that.
Well, it's an important job.
It is, yeah. No, there are plenty of great roles. I'm extremely biased towards pen testing. But there are some really amazing roles in cybersecurity these days, which is really cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's getting very cool.
So speaking of pen testing, as a pen tester who is heavily involved in AppSec, I occasionally come across developers and sometimes just entire development teams who appear resistant to learning about or even being proactive about cybersecurity. Have you encountered anything similar, and what advice would you give to try and encourage them?
I feel like you are in a disadvantaged situation when you are the pen tester meeting them for the first time because you have just informed them just how ugly their baby is. And even if you're super polite and you're the nicest pen tester that's ever happened, we still all have some ego, right? Like we still all were like, that's my baby. And so I feel like you're coming at it in it like not on purpose, but in an adversarial, especially like you're an external entity. There's like, we don't know this person versus when I started doing it, I had been a dev on their team. Right. And so then I'm like, hey, I found some stuff. Can we talk about it? They're like, yeah, Tanya, like we had coffee 2 weeks ago. Right. So I'm coming at a different spot. So then when I went to my next job, Tiberius, I was evil Tanya from the security team. I was a stranger danger situation. And so what I learned to use really gentle language. So I'd be like, hey, I think I found something, even though I know darn well I found something. I'd use a lot of justifying language, which they tell women point blank not to do in the workplace because they're like, you shouldn't justify all the things you do. But I found I just got better results. So when delivering the bad news, use a lot of, I think I might have found something. I know I found something, but I don't need to say that. I can be gentle. And I'm like, let's work on it together. And some of the pen testers on my team would use not nice language to explain they'd found a bug. And they would use very judgmental language, right? So yes, I have come against resistance. Often it's because they've had to deal with a person and or many people from the security team that were not polite, that maybe made them feel mocked or embarrassed or frustrated because they're like, no, you can't do that. Okay, what can I do? No. Right? And like when they just say no and they won't give you any options, it's because they don't know either. And they are also feeling insecure right now. And then you get this friction point, right? So I had to learn a lot of social skills when I switched to security because as a dev, I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to rate the code. That's it.
Yeah.
Point final. Right? Versus, oh, I have no authority to make this person do what I want. I have to persuade them. So I read a lot of books about persuasion and sales and negotiating and stuff. And I actually I'm reading Getting to Yes right now, which is super awesome. But I feel like switching your language can really help. I also feel like education really helps. So I often come in and I speak. And now I'm a professional public speaker. So I speak at conferences all the time. It is like my main job to speak. I speak many times per week. Like I spoke 6 times last week, right? So I speak a lot,
Damn.
usually more than once per day. Yeah, I know, right? I love it though. As a person that's been a performer her whole life, this is the best job ever. But I sucked when I started speaking. The first time I gave a talk at work, I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And my heart was beating so loud. I'm surprised I didn't pass out. I literally was like, how can they hear me? My heart's like, boom, boom, boom. But I lived, as you can see, and I got more comfortable with it. But I find like if you can communicate your fears and your concerns in a genuine manner, that then you can connect over things, right? And when we gloss over something or we assume someone knows, or we come across as, well, I know more than you. Because sometimes security people do that, will come across as like holier than thou. And like, no, we're all equals and we're all trying to do better, right? And like maybe I have some knowledge they don't. They have lots of knowledge I don't. And so I have found that coming across with a different attitude really helps. I have this friend named Ray LeBlanc. I don't know if you've met him, but he writes the Hella Secure blog. And he is sarcastic all the time, except when he says, devs are my customers. And I love that. And so I've kind of adopted that. Like he's like, it's my job to help you do your job securely, right? And if you think about it, Tiberius, that's your job. It's your job to help them secure their app, right? So you find things so they can fix them. You help explain what they are so they know what to do. So yeah, I found adjusting my language and doing presentations really helps. Like presentations to explain the thing that is important to me and that I'm concerned about. I know that was a long answer.
No, it was a great answer. 100% agree. A lot of people, especially people who want to get into pen testing, don't realize how much of a customer-facing role it is. Like, readout calls exist. Like, a lot of the job is going in, doing the pen test, writing the report. None of that is really customer-facing. But, like, scoping calls, you'll be on scoping calls at some point, customer-facing, and then readout calls. Definitely customer facing, and especially if you have a customer who doesn't like the fact that you broke something or, found some kind of bug, they just feel like, yeah, you got to deal with those situations. But I 100% understand, like, I have a massive fear of public speaking, and I set myself up a couple of years ago to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna conquer it. And I started streaming, and streaming really helped because I was on camera in front of 100 or so people. I couldn't see them, but baby steps. And then this year, finally, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write some talks and do some cons. And I think I've talked 3 times this year already. So yeah. So I still shake a little bit on stage, but it's getting better. So yeah, I definitely recommend. I mean, yeah, the more you sort of practice public speaking and the more you actually communicate with people, communication is so key. So yeah, I 100% agree with you.
Well, and practice on a friend. So last week I was in Ottawa at B-Sides Ottawa, and I was the keynote, which was really exciting because that's the first conference I ever spoke at in my whole life. And I remember my professional mentor at the time, Adrian, who passed away. He's the founder of that conference. Yeah, I know he passed away this year, so I gave a little speech about him. But he stood on stage with me. So he's like, I'll be right here. I'm like, no, you'll be safe in the audience, Adrian. I will be up there where people can see me. It is terrifying. And he's like, I'll come on stage with you. I'm like, no, you won't. He's like, yeah, I will. Whatever, it's my conference. I can do whatever the hell I want. So he just stood there, totally awkward. I'm like, this is so awkward. He's like, you think I give a shit? It was so amazing. And he just stood there. And then my entire demo completely failed. It was so bad. And I did not know someone else had attacked my demo site earlier that day and destroyed it.
Oh.
The timing. And then finally he's like, just move on. I'm like, well, you all get the picture. You know what I mean. Yeah. So like, present to someone. So someone actually presented to me today, and I gave her like 1,000,000 miles of feedback of how to make it better. And I'm like, keep practicing on every single person from some crap until you're like bored of giving it. And then you are ready for an audience because she's so nervous. I'm like, it's okay. We'll all sit through it.
Exactly. There's one thing that doing live demos has taught me. It's always have a backup video. So anytime I do a live video now, I'm like, I know how to make like live demo. Every time I'm like, I know how to make videos. I'm gonna make a video, and then if everything fails, I'll just pull up VLC and be like, here you go, watch this.
No, it's true. That's
But
really
that's
brilliant.
insane.
I always mean to do that. And then I'm like, YOLO, let's see if my demo
Screw it. Nobody's gonna hack my site today. Yeah. And
I
then they
know,
do.
what luck, right? Like, oh,
That's awesome. I feel so bad.
no. Well, and then later that day, a man was giving a presentation, and I was the first woman to ever present at this conference. It had always been all men. And for
Nice,
those that
congrats.
don't know, our industry has really changed, and there's a lot more women, and it's awesome. But he got up and he's like, as we saw with Ms. Janca's talk, some people know security and some just don't.
Damn, okay.
And then no one laughed and everyone was
good.
silent and a lot of people crossed their arms. And then he
Yeah.
just like paused and then he continued. And after he's like, no one liked my joke. I'm like, it was mean. And
Yeah.
he's like, I said some people don't know security and some people really do. Like Tanya. I'm like, no, that's not what you said.
You gotta make sure your jokes land properly, man, if you're gonna try something like that.
Yes. So if you're not a funny person, don't try to be funny for the first time on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Damn.
And I still presented at another conference after all that. I still did.
Good. Yeah, don't let that kind of stuff get you down, especially in this industry.
No. There are people that are mean on the internet, and you know what I think? Gosh, I guess that person's having a terrible day that they had to lash out at me. Probably stubbed their toe, fell on their butt, their dog bit them.
One can hope, right? If people are being mean on the internet, yeah, no, I don't care what happens to them. So, over the past couple of years, we've seen the rise of AI-assisted tools that sort of integrate into the development process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've also seen horror stories of these tools producing really insecure code. So my question is, do you think we may see an increasing number of software vulnerabilities that could get linked back to AI? Or do you think, like, overall, the use of AI is likely going to end up a net good for software development, secure software development?
So I think that like every new technology, it's going to be misused at the beginning by accident and on purpose. And then after a little while, we will get good at it. And there'll still be jerks that are malicious actors that use it for bad, right? That is the thing that will happen. But that most of us will start to learn how to use it properly. So when we started with writing APIs, like they were terrible at first. I don't need to validate my input. Why would I do that? What? And then we did serverless and we made the same mistakes. And we did IoT and we made the same mistakes, but they're improving over time, right? So I think that is one thing. But I think because the AIs themselves learn, I think it might get a lot better. I'm taking Jason Haddox's Red, Purple, Blue AI class, and I'm really excited to make my own AIs and train it on my books. Because when I remember my publisher was like, you're not allowed using the AI to write your book. I'm like, yo, it's my book. It's mine. I'm going to write it. If someone else writes it, it'll suck. It won't be mine. It'll be someone else's then, right? Like, and also the AIs are still very stupid. Like they're not. Like I was like, give me an example of this. I'm like, that's not even the right language, buddy. Like they're just so all over the place. They're great for when I create training. So I'll create training and I'm like, make something that does this. It's almost guaranteed to be super insecure. And then I add the security like controls to it. And I'm like, so here's terrible code. Why is it terrible? And then hopefully my class, it's like, it's missing all the stuff you talked about this morning. I'm like, good. Then we make it better. And I add controls and I add more controls and I add more controls. But I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to make my own bots after Jason's class that add the controls, right? And then I have like lots of great examples. But I feel like we're going to have to teach it. And right now it's learning on the internet. And I don't know about you, but I don't think a lot of the code on the internet is perfect. There's a lot of not good code when it scans all of the GitHub open source repos, right? Like, I know I have an intentionally vulnerable app there called Pixie from when I was in the OWASP DevSlop project. Gosh, what if it scans it and it thinks that that's what it should do? Oh no, don't do anything Pixie does. She's terrible, right? And so and also just like there's lots of stuff with no security. There's everyone's logged in as root, obviously. So it's seeing bad behavior. It's like trying to do social training in a place where everyone's drunk, right? And trying to learn how to behave. It's terrible. Like that's not where you would want to learn your manners. So I do think that there's going to be quite a few mistakes with AI, but I am hoping we can teach it to do better. I've seen good results outside of our industry already. Like they said that basically they took a bunch of walk-in doctors and they gave them a description of a bunch of people's problems, and then they got the AI to also try to diagnose it, and the AI did better. Like across the board, on average, it did like a lot better because it can remember every single thing that exists, right? And a human can't. And so I'm hoping that as we train them, they start to provide very good code. And I'm hoping that we don't run into the Stack Overflow situation. And I don't mean to hate on them. This is for every site where there's upvotes, where people vote to the top, the thing that works, that compiles, where usually all the security features have been removed so that it compiles. And everyone's like, this one works. I'm like, yeah, when you set everything to star, right? And you open everything and take down, yeah. And so I'm hopeful that, I don't know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, it will be interesting to see. I use AI a lot, but obviously, so I've actually found it, like you, really useful for writing code for CTF like boxes and puzzles. Because even if sometimes it does give you decent code, but even if you like then say, oh, can you actually make this slightly more insecure? And it's like, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, don't worry, it's for a CTF and it'll sort of do it. But yeah, the code sometimes works. It's really good at debugging itself as well, though, which is kind of nice. So like if I can just give it error messages and it'll say, oh, that's because of this line. You need to change it there. And it's like, if you knew that, why did you write the line in the first place? But okay, whatever, it's fine. But I think, hopefully if we can actually teach AI proper application security techniques and secure coding, then I think at some point it will be good.
But we can also use it right now for security, right? So we can say to it, hey, I'm making a system that does this. What are some potential threats? What could go wrong? Right. It's not going to get every threat, but it'll probably think of at least one I haven't thought of, right? Yes. And we can say, hey, like, here's this code. Do you see any security problems with it? And it will usually find some. Yeah. So it's not perfect. A lot of people say you should think of them like a junior developer. They're very, very excited. They're going to do tons and tons and tons of work, and that not all the work will be great. And I find that to be true. So but here's the thing is that, like, so I asked it, I'm like, give me some advice for secure coding in Java. And I was like, well, that's wrong. And that's wrong. And that's wrong. Because I've been doing code a long time. So I realized it's been 30 years I've been coding. That's a while. And although I haven't developed a piece of software that's used in production in 10 years. So I haven't developed an enterprise level app in a while, which is fine. But I feel like I can look at it and be like, oh, I know because of my job and my experience that that's not good. Not all of us can, right? And so will people take the time to read the code and make sure they understand it before they copy and paste it in? A lot of them aren't going to. That is the problem.
True. Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah, that I mean, that's the major issue with sites like Stack Overflow as well. So yeah, the answers might be correct in the sense of, yes, the code does do what you asked, but it's not the most secure solution. And that's just going to end up with way more problems than you actually originally wanted. So yeah.
Well, and sometimes it doesn't even make code that does what you asked. Like, I'm like,
Right.
Oh, I see how you misinterpreted what I was thinking. And I'm like, oh, I see. Because I'm like, what the hell? So, yeah, I mean, like, the better a software developer is, the more they'll be able to read it and understand it and make sure it does what it does. But I don't think we should copy and paste random code into our apps. Just if you have one takeaway from this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. No argument from me there. So you've spoken often, even in this interview, about the importance of mentoring before, and you created and popularized the hashtag Cyber Mentoring Monday on social media, which regular viewers of my channel will recognize as the name of my Monday live stream. So you have Tanya to thank for that. Can you share how your own mentors influenced your career journey and how people looking for mentors can find them?
So I'm a huge believer in mentors. I did not understand when I was younger that some people were my mentors, if that makes sense, because I just always go to this person for advice because they always gave great advice. And then when I was maybe in my early 30s, someone was telling me, oh, well, and then I asked my mentor. And I was like, why do you, I kind of just thought mentors were in movies. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll see like a martial arts movie and they'll talk about their mentor and they make them do a lot of exercise. That was my experience. And none of my mentors have ever made me drop down and give them 20 push-ups. So don't be afraid, folks. But so he was telling me, he's like, oh, well, I asked him this and I asked him that. He's like, you should have a mentor. He's like, your career would be crazy. Like, he's like, I'm like, oh, I'm plenty successful. He's like, no, you could be more successful. And I'm like, well, I was holding the top technical position in the government and had been for like quite a while and got to that level very young. And it only took so long because I needed to learn French. I'm like, I think I'm doing great. And he's just like, whatever. And so then when that friend of mine offered he's like, you're going to be my apprentice. I'm going to mentor you. I'm going to teach you. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was the most difficult on me of any professional mentor I've ever had by like 100 times. And I found out later I'm the only person that ever graduated his program because, I just scream at them and fire them. And he was quite negative and harsh and perfectionist. And like his standards were something no one could ever reach. And then eventually he broke, like, we split apart and there was some yelling at me. And, like asking a question was the end of the world. Well, you're an idiot. You should know that. And I'm like, well, but I have zero experience. So how would I know that? And so then my next professional mentor was like the exact opposite and was very like, yeah, dude, ask me anything. Like, I am here for you. And so I started so I wanted to find another professional mentor. So this is how I found Adrian. I totally tricked him. I was like, I'm going to run this mentoring program for my OWASP chapter. And I was the chapter leader. And I asked lots of people to be mentors. So we found 10 mentors. And I was like, okay, so hopefully we find 10 people that want mentors. Oh, wow. There was like 50 people that wanted mentors. And my friend Rana was like, was it Rana or Katie? So she was like, I want you to be, oh no, it was Katie. She's like, well, I want you to be my mentor. So you can stand up there and then I'll come to you so you have someone. Because I did not think anyone would want me. I only had like 2 years experience and I wasn't speaking. I was totally in the background. 10 people want me to be their mentor. I was like, what? I don't know anything. They're like, you work in AppSec. I want to work in AppSec. You could show me how you did that. And I was like, oh, wow. So I ended up taking 4 and I still know all of them quite well. And they're just amazing now. They're so amazing. And I figured out, so my format of mentoring is different than every other person's. I do a lot of advocacy for my folks. So I'll like introduce them for jobs or I'll ask if they can speak somewhere. Like one of them, because there's been many, many now. One of them, I was the keynote at a conference and I was like, hey, can my friend speak at your conference? Like you passed over her talk, but I'm telling you, she's really amazing and I will coach her and I promise you she will do an amazing job if you have her. So I used my power to open the door for her. And so I've discovered that I can open a ton of doors. So like every time I'm on a podcast after I'm like, hey, would you like a list of like people I'm mentoring that are really amazing that want to be on podcasts that I think will be great? And they always say, send me that list. Right. And so then I help just open as many doors as I can for them. Whereas like one of my other professional mentors, he's like, listen, if you have tried for 4 hours to solve a problem and you can't solve it, text me and I'll tell you the answer. But if you have not Googled the living tar out of it first, I am going to be angry with you and I'm going to hang up. Cool? I'm like, super reasonable. Yes, sir. And then like, I found that I was like, well, I only want to ask him if I really need to. And so I solved a lot of problems on my own. And then like the one where I needed to, he's like, you do this, this, and then this. I was like, yes. And he's like, no, I just have more experience than you. Go get him, Tiger. Right. And like having people that help you is amazing. So I have one now that helps me say no because I love saying yes. And then I get myself into hot water. And so I will call her and be like, Alona. And she's like, say no, say no. And like, I'll go over the things with her and she's like, this one, I think it sounds like no. I'm like, it should. She's like, you're going to go say no and you're going to text me after you told me. You have to tell me you said no. If you don't tip, I'm going to make fun of you. I'm like, okay. Right. And so it's like a person that will be confidential with your private information you're sharing with them, a person that's on your side that wants to help you, a person that's not charging you money, a person that is not going to give you money. So you are not expecting them to hire you. They do not have to find you a job. That's not their responsibility. And a person who hopefully is not in a conflict of interest. Because twice I've had to break up with a professional mentor because both of them were trying to force me into a business deal where they would get lots of money. And they're just like, you should do this, you should do this. And it's like, it does not make sense in my career whatsoever to take that deal or to take that job and like work for you. And like, I respect that that's really good for you. But if you weren't my mentor, I would never consider this deal. So we got to split. And one of them took it better than the other. But so if they're pressuring you to take a job where they will financially benefit, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. It means they like money, but they're not the right professional mentor for you. And that's okay. So how do we find one? Right? So that is why, so I ran that mentoring program for my OWASP chapter and that went okay. Then I tried to do another mentoring thing with OWASP. And then I did another one. I did 2 this year with OWASP in person. But those reach a very small number of people and they don't scale. And so I really wanted to do something that scaled. I also found out, Tiberius, I'm the world's worst matchmaker. Every person, I'm like, you and you'll be great together. They'd always hate each other. I suck so bad at matchmaking. That is okay. I have other skills. And so what I'm very good at, though, is connecting people. So not choosing for you, but making an opportunity where lots of people can meet and the situation is right so that you get a good conversation. And so I started this hashtag, and at first it was Mentoring Monday. And then this company, their marketing team figured out it was extraordinarily popular. And then they flooded it by tweeting hundreds of times a day on Monday to try to sell their product. And I hope that they wake up every morning and stub their toe. Now, so then my friend Frank helped me come up with, he's like, well, let's add, security to it. And I was like, InfoSec, Mentoring Monday. He's like, that sounds like crap. Yeah, it does. And then I'm like, Security Mentoring Monday. And he's like, people say cyber. They say it. I know that in our industry, we use the term InfoSec and cyber is like, a lot of us make fun of that word. But he's like, everyone knows that word. And people that are new to our industry know that word. And so that word is friendly for them and will attract them. So we chose Cyber Mentoring Monday. So every Monday on Twitter and now LinkedIn and now Blue Sky and now Mastodon, because I have to do 4 mentoring programs. I can't do 1. I use this hashtag. And so I post in the morning and I'm like, hey, use this hashtag to try to connect with others in your field. And then people answer and I reshare their post. LinkedIn won't let me reshare comments, which sucks. Their platform is not really great for this. But people just kept asking for it on LinkedIn. So I was like, well, I am here to help. So, okay. And then people post, I want to get into AppSec or I want to learn this. And then other people post like, hey, I've been doing this for a long time and I'm willing to mentor someone new. Message me. And so make sure your messages are open. So make sure people can send you direct private messages. That's very important. And put your best foot forward. So sometimes people will say, yeah, I want a mentor. Do you feel you're going to attract people with that comment? Do you feel that it's clear what type of mentor you need? Do you feel it's clear what you want to learn? No, you are not putting your best foot forward. You sound like, gimme, right? This person is going to do amazing things for you for free. Out of the goodness of their heart, you need to attract them. So something like, hey, so I am looking for an AppSec mentor. I am a software developer, super interested in AppSec. I've read 4 books and I've watched a bunch of videos on the OWASP channel, and I just need some direction. I want to get some experience. I want to figure out what I should learn. Would someone have a virtual coffee with me? And then have virtual coffees with everyone and figure out which person you like the best. And then form a longer term relationship with that person. I get to know them, make them your confidant. Like, it is so amazing to be able to call someone and just, like, I remember when I was selling my company, being able to call them and be like, so like I got some offers that weren't good at first, and they're just like, don't take that, you're better than, what are you, no, don't even call them back. Right? And like running a business, having so many people, so many professional mentors help me with connecting me for business deals, giving me advice on how much to charge. Like, I still call people, like I have to write up a quote for a bunch of custom training right now, and I'm like, I don't know how much to charge. And so I'll call a bunch of people I know and be like, what would you charge? Because they want something very, very, very special. And I totally want to do it. And I want to get the most amount of money I can without making them not hire me. Right. And they want to have the weird thing I do, which is cool. They want everyone to laugh and have a really great time and learn at the same time. And so I feel like knowing that you have these people that you can trust, and they need to trust you too. Right? Mm-hmm. So like, if one of my professional mentors asks me for something, I'm like, I'll do anything you want. Right? Like, they're like, hey, like quite often it's, I have this junior person that wants to have a session with you and they need advice on this. Or can you review my presentation for me? Or whatever they want, I'll do it. Right? Like, they've done so many things for me. It's like, oh, this person, could you introduce me? Yeah. Right? And so professional mentors don't usually ask for favors that often. So when they do, I'm like, I'm going to outdo myself.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love the, holding doors open for people that because also that kind of attitude, especially for mentees, is like ingrained. So when they eventually become mentors, which is what you hope, right? They will pass that on. They will like be holding doors open for people, which I think is great because that's the kind of attitude we really need in this industry. And yeah, like every Monday I try and do my stream, and it might even just be something like solving a CTF box and answering questions in chat. I always say in chat there are no stupid questions because there aren't. I know more stuff than other people, so I'm a good person to ask. But we've also done interview prep stuff. So we did resume reviews. I've reviewed resumes online. We've done mock interviews. I wish I had more time to do. I just don't have time anymore to do anything. It really sucks, which is why I try and at least do the streams and contribute in that way.
That is why I'm trying to learn to say no, so that I can do the things that are most important to me, right? So making enough time to write a book was really hard. And so I had to say no to some trips that sounded super fun, and like say no to mentoring more people, which is why I started the program. So I'm like, I can't mentor you, but I can help you find a mentor. For your mock interviews, I have the best AppSec question. Mm-hmm. Choose any one of the OWASP top 10 from any version of the top 10, and then role play with me. I'm a dev and I have it in my code. And you have to explain to me that I have it. You have to break the news to me. and you have to explain to me why it's scary, convince me to fix it, and then explain to me how to fix it.
I like
And if they talk down to you, no job. If they don't make it clear how to fix it, no job. If they've never heard of OWASP, no job. Right? Like, I don't need you to know the whole top 10, but everyone's heard of injection or cross-site scripting, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it is a great way to see how they'll speak to a dev.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, actually. Yeah, because I've been to so many interviews where they've just asked me to name a few of the top 10. I'm like, but come on, like, test me, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's a good one. The in-depth answers are always better for interviews. So yeah, I really like that question.
Well, and I feel like you get to know the person a bit and how they will behave on the job.
Yes.
And I know, like, surprising a role play can be hard for some people, but I'm like, it's just you and me. And I just want to know that how you'll treat our devs, because you're like the face of our company, of our team to the rest of the company, right? And like, I've worked, I kid you not, Tiberius, I got, so my first job on an official AppSec team, I was so excited, I was over the moon. And I was like, I'm going to learn so much from everyone. That's going to be amazing. So I did not understand that they were called the AppSec team. They did risk analysis. I did not understand that they didn't actually run any tools, do pen tests, do threat modeling. They just filled out security architecture documents and told everyone they're stupid. And so I walked up to so it's like maybe my second, third day on the job. And I walk up to the two guys on my team and they're like making faces at each other and then laughing. And they're in the hallway and they're like, nah, and then they would laugh and they're like, and they would laugh. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they're like in a fit of giggles. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're practicing our faces. And I'm like, okay, what are the faces for? They're like, it's for when software developers ask stupid effing questions in meetings. We make a face so they know how dumb they are and they know not to never ask again. And they just had a meeting and a dev had asked for help with something. And then they made a face at them that made him feel so humiliated that then he didn't speak the rest of the meeting. And they thought this was hilarious. And I was like, I have made such a grave mistake coming here. Oh no. Oh no, I do not belong. I do not belong. And so I went and I spoke to my boss and I was really upset. And I was like, we should not. And she's like, yeah, they're not allowed talking to devs. Those two they're not nice. You and me, and there's another person on the team. She's like, we're the only ones allowed, or no, there are two other people. They're the only ones allowed talking to devs. They're not allowed speaking to devs anymore. They are stuck behind a desk. Yeah, I got a complaint about that. Yeah, they're never. And she had started like 2 months before me and recruited me. And I can't believe another human being would treat someone like that, period.
Right. Yeah. No, that sucks. I've worked for a customer before, and we learned that they would basically financially punish their devs if stuff was found as a result of a pen test. I'm pretty sure we fired the customer after we figured that out. But yeah, that was ridiculous. Like, so like withholding bonuses for like, oh, there was SQL injection that was found. So, which is like, no, how's that going to encourage anything? Like, that's not the way to go.
Maybe give them a bonus if they fix all their bugs really quickly, or give them a bonus if they created fewer bugs than ever. Like, instead of the reward,
Right.
Instead of the stick, have the reward, have the carrot. I find you get better results with that most of the time.
Yeah.
Like, almost everyone responds better to the reward than the stick. Very few people that respond to the stick.
Yeah.
But sometimes you gotta do that. Or it's like, so there's a policy, and I'm gonna have to get up in your business about this policy because we've talked about this 3 times. But 99% of the time, they get nice Tanya, who's like, here's a high five, good job.
I like nice Tanya. So, your first book, Alice and Bob Learn Application Security, used a storytelling approach with the characters Alice and Bob, who you follow through the book as they encounter various security issues and deal with them. How much of this approach do you attribute to the success of the book, and did you tweak anything for the sequel?
So, I am dyslexic, and when I was an adult, I learned French as a second language. And so I went to a special school for dyslexic adults, and they taught me the 21 learning styles. And so I applied as many as possible to the book. So there's more than just the storytelling in there, specifically to try to make sure you learn. And so there's like all these little pop-outs where I give you like little tips and hints, and it's to give yourself a little micro break. There's humor in there so that you can hopefully enjoy reading the book, analogies, stories, like constantly trying to, and also like for every abstract concept that's really complex, finding 3 separate times in the book to explain it in a brand new way to make sure you fully understand. And so I do that when I teach too. Like I'll have all these memes, and I remember people are like, why do you have all these stupid memes? I'm like, oh, because it's a micro break for your brain. So when your brain has a micro break where you think about something else, and especially if you laugh or sigh or do something, so there's certain things our body does that let off steam, and laughing's one. You take your short-term memory stuff, you push it to your long-term memory, and I just made you learn. Like we do all these things where I make you do recall and other things on purpose to try to make you learn, because I had to learn how to learn. And so I trick all of you to learn with me. And so with the next book, the new book, so there's a lot more stories, and Alice dates a pen tester. Ooh. She will not put up with any funny business. And she makes friends on the GRC team, and Bob gets a mentor and someone who's his true role model who he really respects. I like how you kind of get to follow them throughout. I also tried to put more positive stories about governance, risk, and compliance, because I have had very bad experiences by working in the Canadian government with governance, risk, and compliance. And when my technical editors told me how I was being a little negative, and so I met with a whole bunch of GRC folks to get positive stories and like litter them throughout the book to try to help people see how things can go really well. This book, so the first book was aimed for someone that wants to learn how to do the job of application security professional. And anyone, like a project manager can read it, a software developer could read it, any sort of security person can read it, but it was really aimed to try to make new AppSec professionals, and it really helped. And then I ran my company, SheHacksPurple, and we graduated new AppSec engineers all the time and helped them find jobs, and that was my life for a few years. And then this new book is aimed at software developers specifically, and so I cover the secure system development lifecycle at the end of the book, but it's from their point of view, which I feel no one has covered. So in my first book, I'm like, oh, this is how you do a threat model, and this is like how you would start reviewing code and like running, like doing different types of testing and like do the governance or whatever. But imagine you're experiencing it. And that's what I wanted to write. So like if you're going to attend a threat model, what should you bring with you? What's it going to be like? Is it going to be weird? It's going to be fun, turns out. Threat models are really fun, or I think so. I've never been to one where I wasn't like, oh, that was interesting. And so trying to show everything from their point of view and try to make things explicit as possible and simple as possible. So yeah, there's still lots of stories. There's not quite as many diagrams, and my kids told me that sucks. There's like 3 diagrams in the whole book. They're like, there's not enough pictures. Like, I know. I'm making a terrible children's book. It is not for children. I think people are going to like it. I don't mean to sound conceited, but I am very proud of this work. And I feel like it's the book I wish that I'd had as a dev. It covers 10 programming languages, 8 programming frameworks, mobile, IoT, serverless, APIs, web apps, web sockets. It covers, I decided to cover vulnerabilities in a weird way. You as a person who knows vulnerabilities very well. I'm like, why would I cover CVEs? Everyone knows those. Why would I cover CWEs? Everyone knows those. So instead I made Tanya's categories. So I talk about race conditions. I talk about all sorts of things, but I explain like, you don't need to memorize all these. What you need to know is how to write code where this isn't going to happen to you. And you need to know how to, if you find it, how to fix it, right? If someone reports this to you, how to fix it. And so we talk about like, why is this scary? What could happen? But also how you can make sure it never happens to you. And yeah, I'm really excited for the book. Really, really excited for people to be able to start. Well, I've already been giving soft copies for people to give quotes for the book. And it's really exciting to hear feedback.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I really hope it goes well. So obviously you did give me a soft copy. So I did read some of it in preparation for this interview. The first part of the book is sort of exploring the general concepts, and then you dive into specific advice for certain languages. So I was kind of interested, which one of those sections did you find like harder to write, and which one did you have more fun writing?
So the first part of the book is agnostic advice that applies to every language. And I found that to be more fun to write. And I got to just like deep dive into things. Like really, I really enjoyed like deep diving into like object-oriented programming and like how you can, well, I guess that's in the second part of the book now that I think of it. So I talk about polymorphism in my car. Anyway,
That's a good
it's
one.
a long story. Like I use the two.
I get that concept. No, I understand it.
I've only owned 2 cars ever in my life, and then I'm talking about like objects and how one's more abstracted. And anyway, I make a lot of jokes that where I am the butt of the joke, and that's fine. But I really enjoy being able to deep dive into things and kind of suss them out in my own weird way, because I find like a lot of textbooks are like polymorphism is this. I'm like, and they'll give you an example that is like a programming example. And I'm like, can you give me a real life example? Because I don't get it. Like I was trying to explain how you can call something from a different context. So, you know, you can override a function and call it, and then it does something differently. And like, so, you know, normally, so as an example, if my mom says, Tanya, did you put your dishes in the dishwasher? Versus, you know, normally she just says Tanya. She doesn't call me Ms. Janca. Yeah, actually, she calls me Ms. Janca when I have not put my dishes in the dishwasher. Right? And so you call the thing a different way. It behaves differently based on context. And I feel like, yeah, I had a really good time making analogies and like kind of sussing, like kind of teasing things out, if that makes sense. I found writing the language specific advice to be very difficult because one, there's a lot of terrible advice. I'm like, no, that's bad advice. Like I was reading all over the internet. I'm like, no, that's terrible. Don't do that. Okay, so don't put that in. And so I would read these articles about like, you know, top 10 programming tips in Java. I'm like, no, 6 of those are bad. Don't do those. Or some of them are good, but they're really poorly explained. Or everyone just did 10. There are way more than 10 things I need you to do in Java. Way more than 10. I discovered a lot of plagiarism. I have this friend named Tal Liren, and his articles have been plagiarized hundreds of times. Maybe not hundreds. At least like I found at least 6 or 10 of one of his articles plagiarized. Like over and over again, his articles were plagiarized. So I wrote him and told him, I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to quote you, obviously, in the book. But like, I was surprised at that specific person being plagiarized. So his articles are great. I get why someone wished they were their articles. But gosh, that must be frustrating for him. But also, so then when I would read articles, then I'd have to make sure that person wrote it. Because when I dove down deeper, I found Tal a lot.
Yeah.
Like for Node.js specifically, because that's his jam, right? And so I would have to like dig down to see who actually wrote something. And that was really weird for me to find out how much plagiarism, like I knew that there was plagiarism on the internet, but I can't imagine how upset I would be to find my article with someone else's name on it higher in the search results. So I'd have to go like through many pages of search results sometimes to find like the real article. It's weird.
It's something I've encountered as well, that there seems to be this sort of disconnect. People don't seem to think you can copyright blog posts, and you absolutely 100% can. Like, people understand copywriting music and videos, and somehow that's, you know, completely understood. If you repost someone else's video, then yeah. But blogs, you can copyright blogs. You can't just take someone, even if it's free, even if someone writes a blog, puts it on their website for free, you cannot just copy that and paste it somewhere else and then be like, there you go. That's not allowed.
The moment you put it into the public domain, it is copywritten for you. You have to be able to prove you were the first person to do it. But if you have a public blog and you put it out and then someone copies it 5 days later, your web server or whatever should be able to show that you published it then. And the Wayback Machine is very helpful for things like that. But yeah, like it's one thing to quote someone. So I have over 300 sources in the book, and I give credit for everything. And I thank a lot of people in the book who specifically were quite great. But I feel like, yeah, I see a lot of, oh, yeah, I read a textbook, and I will not say who it is by. I actually just ended up reading little bits of it. And the author had zero references. None.
Yeah.
No, I guess you invented everything then, didn't you? Wow, that's amazing. And so, yeah, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I feel like giving people credit, everyone wins. But that's just me. But yeah, so I found like a lot of plagiarism, but I really I had a lot of fun with the Alice and Bob stories. I had a lot of fun with also. I talk about some controversial things in the book. And so you're a pen tester and you probably have some feels. I've seen pen testers that just run an automated scan and email it and charge 10 days work. And that upsets me. Fraud upsets me. I work really hard. When I see people cheating, it upsets me. I've seen a lot of like very biased advice and stuff. So I give a lot of advice. Like if you're going to buy a product, ask around, ask a lot of people, do a proof of concept, make sure it works with all of your other tools, ask your devs to use it. Don't test it on a known public, intentionally vulnerable web app because some of the vendors hard code those results. Not all of them, but some of them do. And so like if you had a pen test recently on an app, take that copy of the app and then run the thing on it because you know which bugs it should be finding, right? And so I try to give a lot of advice of how they can hire someone and make sure they're getting their money's worth for various situations and like how to buy a product and get the right product for them. Because like I work at a company that sells a product. Our product, I think it's great. I work there on purpose. It's not right for everyone in every situation, even though I think it's great. And so I want people to be able to get what's right for their team, for their tech stack, for their project. And so I tried really hard to give like super raw, honest advice about how they can do better because I see people getting ripped off and it makes me angry.
No, absolutely.
I have strong feels.
Yeah, same. I'm not known for my non-controversial opinions on various things, as I'm sure you're aware, but
but it keeps life interesting.
Exactly. I've heard you say that you wrote your first book with previous Tanya in mind because you were learning application security and there was no book. These days, there are like so many more easily accessible resources for developers to learn secure coding. So my question is the new book still written with previous Tanya in mind?
It definitely is. I feel like there's a lot of secure coding books that are full of great information, but they're not always very accessible. And they're not necessarily an easy read. And so I'm currently reading Building Reliable Systems by the Google team. And it's like, so I am a very smart person. I read lots of books for fiction. I listen to lots of audiobooks, but me sitting down reading a textbook is really hard. And I've learned that it's not just dyslexic people that feel that way. And so I wanted to make a book that was easy, like where someone can enjoy the act of reading it instead of just, I need this knowledge to be in my head, so I have to go through this difficult process to absorb it. I want it to be as easy as possible with the idea that people will do more. I'm actually planning on making a whole bunch of PDF cheat sheets out of the book, where if people sign up for my newsletter, then they get the cheat sheets with the idea that then, like, here's your secure coding guideline, just use it, right? Here's your React cheat sheet, just print it, put it at your desk, right? I want to make things as easy as humanly possible because they have a lot on their mind. They have a lot, because security is not their only priority, right? They're supposed to make a really fast app that's beautiful and be a 10x engineer. They're supposed to do front end and back end and database and AI and like program in 20 languages. And it's just, right? And so the easier we can make it, the better. And so I'm still definitely aiming at past Tanya. I also wanted to make it so that they understand the why behind what I'm telling them to do. Because if I don't understand why I need to do the thing, I might not be as motivated to do it every single time. And so explaining Like, this is why we don't share secrets in our code. This is why it's scary. This is why if you find a secret in your code, you have to rotate it. It's been spilt. That's it. It's done. If you check it into source control, you have just wasted check it into your secret manager. You have just wasted everyone's time, including yours. Right? And so I feel like the why behind things is very helpful. I also, it sounds weird, but so I went to school in the 90s. I got my college diploma. I graduated in 2000, or I think I graduated right as it turned 2001. And I got laid off like everyone else because the .com bubble burst. That was a hard year. But like, there was nothing to do with security. There was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I started learning AppSec, I remember there was Jim Manico's Secure Java book, and there was Sunny Ware's security book. But I feel like making an accessible book, making a simple, easy to read book that makes it so that you fully, completely understand the concepts, that was my goal. And also like that it could be enjoyable. Like, my editors told me, they're like, I did laugh out loud at certain points in the book. I'm like, yes! I love making people laugh. It is the best feeling in the world when you make someone laugh.
Absolutely. That's why, honestly, and you said something earlier in the interview, which about, putting jokes into presentations and tricking your brain to learning. That's why I love writing talks and putting like little jokes in, because it does people, some talks can be really interesting, but about boring subjects. And if you put jokes in there, you sort of like regain the audience's attention, especially if it's after like okay, we're going to go do a deep dive into this kind of boring, but really important thing. And then at the end, I'm going to trick you and give you a little joke, and it's going to make you laugh, and then you're going to remember it. So yeah, I love that technique. I think it's really, really good.
Edutainment.
Yes. That's why I like doing with streams and videos as well. I feel like that's kind of important with streaming. So yeah, absolutely.
We need more ex-entertainers to get into security and teach.
Yes. Let's do it.
It pays way better, folks. It pays way better. The entertainment industry does not pay well.
So, as I alluded to at the start of this interview, cybersecurity is a subject that developers need to know about, even if they don't work in cybersecurity. But I know several developers who have gone on to become, for example, pen testers, including yourself. So as someone who made that transition, what advice do you have for developers looking to enter the actual cybersecurity industry itself?
Okay, this is great. So if you are a developer and you want to switch into security, wherever you work, go meet the security team, become friendly with them, and offer help. Say, I am interested. So this is the thing I practice. I say the thing I want, and I say it over and over again. And I tell people I want the thing, and then I usually eventually get it. So it's like, I want to transition into security. You're not telling them you got to hire me. You're telling them this is what I want, right? And say, can I work on some projects? Can I help you? If you see anything that looks like a security incident, and by the way, in my book, I'm going to give you a long list, like a long list. It's like 2 pages of when it looks like your app is being attacked. So if you see something like that, go see them and talk about it. Ask if you can help respond to the incident. Like, I'll help with the investigation, whatever you need. I'll write scripts for you. That is how I got the attention of the security team. And I kept telling them how I was learning things. I also joined my local OWASP chapter. So if you want to be a pen tester, you probably want to join DEF CON chapters. There's probably a lot of awesome people you should follow, like Tiberius, maybe my friend Rana Khalil. There's a whole bunch of, you should follow Jason Haddock. Oh, there's so many amazing.
There's too many. It's crazy.
Right? I'll be here all day. But so follow a lot of those people. But join your local community as well and meet people and tell them like, hey, I'm a dev. I'm so interested in being a pen tester. Or if you're, want to do AppSec, which I did not know existed when I started, right? But it's all the things other than pen testing that are part of AppSec, like threat modeling, code review, DevSecOps, like automating cool tools, reviewing secure, like designs for security. Like there's so many different cool things that you do as an AppSec person. But you can also be a pen tester, and that's also really cool. So join your local community. See if you can find a professional mentor. And again, like tell everyone what you want to do and try to get experience. You can get experience at your current job. Tell your boss, like, listen, this is So it's tricky with a boss because bosses can get insecure. Bosses do not like hearing that you are leaving. So what I like to say is in 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping to transition to blah, even if I want to transition immediately if I can. Right. And so in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm hoping to do blah. Like I have an employee now and she's like, she wants to transition eventually into management. And I'm like, great, then you can be my boss. This will be way better. But I am not an insecure boss. I don't want my team to leave, but I'm just like, if I need to promote you past me, that's life, right? Like it's my job to help you swoosh up in your career. And people will work for you longer if you do that, if you try to help them get to the next level. If they see you undermining them, a smart person will leave, but the crappy people will stay. So tell everyone what you want, join community, find a mentor, learn everything you can, volunteer at work to do all those security things. And then once you feel like you're ready to start doing stuff, if no one will give you the opportunity, then offer to do contracts. So one friend I know, she wrote a bunch of nonprofits and she's just like, hey, so I'm a junior pen tester and I would like to offer to do free pen tests for you, like a free pen test for you, if I can put it on my resume and you'll be my reference. And then she's like, I'm volunteering at an organization I care about. So she did the animal shelter because she loves animals, right? So she's like, I got to help an organization I love. So that's win, right? They can't afford a pen test on their website, right? And she's like, and then I had something on my resume. So that's what I did. I did a full pen test for the department I worked for. And then they still said that wasn't enough experience. So then I remediated everything I found. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're really stubborn, aren't you? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not going away. I'm going to pester you till you hire me. Be determined, don't give up. And so tell your mentors, like, this is what you want and ask if, there's anyone they can introduce you to. Like, tell everyone that will listen that this is what you want and you're more likely to get it. And I am super annoying about stuff like this. Like, I was telling the CEO of SimGrep, I'm like, I want to be a field CISO. And he's like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, so that you can get ready. I'm giving you a year and a half so that you can be ready because that's what I want. And he's like, okay, thanks for letting me know. And so he's had a year and a half to get ready for when my acquisition time ends. And I'm like, that's what I want. So hurry up. And I might not get it there, but I'll get it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. No, if you're determined enough, you can do anything. So yeah. For sure.
Oh, and I just started doing the job for that. I'm just like, I'm going to insert myself into all these sales. I'm going to start making leads I'm going to start doing the job. And there's like, oh, you're doing it, aren't you? I'm like, yeah, just start doing the job you want. I know that sounds weird. You still have to do your job, but you can branch out and help and do those things. And then people see, oh, you know what? They can do that. They are good at that. Oh, maybe DevRel to field CISO makes sense. Or developer to pen tester. Pen tester to AppSec, AppSec to AppSec manager, manager to CISO, right? And a tip. This is from Mary Galloway. I don't know if you know her. I had her on my podcast. She's so smart. She's like, go look at the job you want, look at postings for it and what it has, and go get that stuff.
Right.
So if you don't have experience reviewing, let's say reviewing architecture for security, she's like, go review your own architecture for this. Go to the other team and say, listen, I'm studying this. Can we do an exercise in this so that I can get practice and I can help? And you just keep practicing on everyone and doing the thing until you have experience doing that thing and it's on your resume. Check, 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 check. Boom, you apply for that job. Oh, that's so obvious now that you say it.
Yeah, I think these things are they are kind of obvious, but people just don't think of them, which I guess makes sense because people are sometimes so fixated on what they're currently doing. There's just some things that just don't come to them, which makes sense. So that's another great thing that mentors can do, because mentors often know how to do these things, which is why getting a mentor is really important.
Oh, I have one more idea. If there is a security champions program where you work, you join it immediately. And you tell them that that's what you want. Because when I run security champions programs, sometimes, if we're going to recruit an AppSec person, guess where we're recruiting them from? Obviously from our champions. You have all the corporate memory. that like would take forever for a regular person to get up to speed. All the other developers trust you and know you. That's so valuable. And then we've already taught you how we like to do AppSec. Like, it's like we're getting a free person that's already had 6 months training. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely. The cybersecurity industry is at a weird place right now. So we have governments telling us there's a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. Then we have the bigger companies seemingly laying off more security staff than they're actually hiring. We're also seeing larger cybersecurity educational platforms being purchased by private equity firms, presumably looking to make a profit. Clearly, there's a need for new people in cybersecurity, but do you worry there's more of a focus on profit over investing in security programs at major companies?
I 100% think that our industry is more focused on profit than good. And I am extraordinarily concerned that we are losing the battle because we put capitalism above doing the right thing. When I was with SheHacksPurple, a company approached me about buying us. They said, because we did something called kind capitalism. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, you put kindness above capitalism. And we are 60 companies that all do that work together. And we haven't been able to find a single cybersecurity company until yours that did that, where they qualified. And you qualify with flying colors. You know, your diversity program, you're this, you're that, you're this. We'd like to band together. And I got to know them, and obviously they were super wonderful and kind, as you would expect. They were great. But we decided that like my business model didn't really fit with their business model because theirs was more consulting and services, where mine was like community and products. But we decided that each other were just awesome. And I refer them clients sometimes. But so I feel like, especially with education, there's so much money to be made. And I make money when I give training, right? And like, but I've tried to also create lots of free training. So the SumGrep Academy is just the SheHacksPurple Academy with a facelift. So it says SumGrep on it now, and a lot of new courses. So we keep adding additional content, and it's just free. So we add you to the newsletter. That is your payment, but you can unsubscribe if you need to. But me and Amanda write the newsletter. It's good. But the point is like, now there's no excuse for not having any secure coding training because there's a free one. There's AppTech training and it's free. There's this and it's free, and that and it's free. But here's the thing is that like, I got offered more money to put like a paywall in front of every single thing I do, right? And we all have bills to pay. We need to find a way that we can make education affordable. We need to find a way to make our products more affordable. Like with this whole venture capital funding, they expect 10x returns. They expect 300% growth quarter after quarter, blah, 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 blah. And when you do that, you have to charge more, right? And I absolutely agree and am very sad that I feel we're putting profits before, I wouldn't want to say before doing a good job, but before ensuring that we do a good job. And that is very scary. It's very scary. And it makes people not trust our industry. I talk about fraud in the book quite a bit. Well, not quite a few times. And like every time we have, you know, a person that frauds someone and like, they're like, yeah, I did a pen test, but they just did like a quick burp suite scan, right? Like that's not real security. And this person thinks they're safe now.
Right.
And I've had people tell me like, oh yeah, like we have a pen test every month. I'm like, oh no, you don't. They're like, yeah, and they email it to us this and like they're like, well, we had a pen test before you came, and I'm like, well, I just found 20 things, and I just looked for a few seconds. So we have work to do. They're fired, right? They're fired. Yeah, okay. Now we're gonna do real security. But every time that happens, people get a sour taste in their mouth and they don't trust us, and that is disconcerting. I wish that the government. So at B-side, so Ottawa is the capital of Canada. It's not Toronto. I know, right? But so they had a policy village there, and we talked about government policies we'd like to see. But then I just walked across the hallway, and Treasury Board Secretariat, who makes all the policies for Canada, was there. And I'm like, I'd really like to see this. I'd really like to see that. They're like, we'd really like to talk. And I used to work at Treasury Board. They're like, are you going to come back? I'm like, you going to add a zero to my old paycheck? No. right? But I will come meet with you for free. I would love to do a secure coding guideline for the government and have them enforce it so that me and my family are safe, because they're not doing a great job yet. Right? So I have 4 parents because they got divorced and remarried when I was really young. So I've always had 4 parents in my memory. And 2 of them were in a data breach from the Canada Revenue Agency, which is like the IRS for Canada. And like their terms and conditions say, if you use our service, you agree to our terms, and I have to use their service, I'll be arrested. I have to pay my taxes. I don't have a choice. So I'm not actually accepting their terms, but they say if they lose your data, that it's not their fault and they're not liable because the internet's not very safe and they're doing literally everything they can. I'm like, you don't even have any settings on your cookies for security. You're not using any security headers. And that's just from like looking at a response, because I'm not allowed to touch anything, right? I do not want to be arrested. I'm like, I see your policy. You're not following it. This is bullshit. We should be able to do something. This is not okay. And so Treasury Board's like, we're going to give you a way to report this. And so then I went to this Canadian Security Establishment table and I talked to them and I'm like, I'm going to report this. They're like, give us your email. We're going to send it to you. I'm like, okay, what is your email? Because I've been like writing blog posts and writing letters to the Prime Minister's office. I'm like, our security is not acceptable and there's no recourse. So I feel like the government needs to take action. It needs to work with private industry, because when I was in the government, guess how much security training I got? Like none. I got 1 class on incident response, which was actually really cool. And then we did a tabletop exercise one day. That was really cool. And then I got to take 2 or 3 night school courses that they paid for. And that was it in all of my years of cybersecurity in the government. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Right? That it took me a long time to learn the things that I know when I left. And so they need some consultants to come in and they need to craft laws. Like it needs to be like, you need to be this secure, period. Boom.
Right.
That's it. Like when the sorry, you got me ranting. When the American government came out with the executive order that we should do S-bombs, everyone's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, so an S-bomb is good. I would love everyone to have a software bill of materials that states all the ingredients of your app. That would be great. But you know, it'd be way better if we did software composition analysis, which creates an SBOM, and then every single vulnerability that's medium or above, like one that has you remove it from your app or you upgrade off of it to something good. And if it's reachable or exploitable, you absolutely remove it. What if everyone had to run like a static analysis tool and then actually had to fix the top bugs it reported? What if everyone had to do a system development lifecycle that had at least 1 security step in each phase? Like there's so many better things that they could have had us do. And all my SBOM people, just to be clear, it adds value. It just doesn't add as much value as software composition analysis would. Like, I don't care that you have a list if everything in the list is danger, right?
And you're doing nothing about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing. You're just saying
the SBOM doesn't make anyone take any action. And so then they're all focusing on making this list instead of fixing bugs. I feel like it's a distraction. And I have a lot of thoughts, and I approached the government and gave them all my card and was like, please call me. I will help, and we'll see if they do.
Awesome. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. I feel as influencers, it is our job to push the government and to try to influence where we can and to try to influence industry in a more positive way. Like I remember seeing interviews with like pop stars and they're like, I don't have to be people's role models. Like it's not part of my job to whatever. Yes, it is. It's part of your job. It's why you get paid the big bucks and why you get to sign autographs. I'm sorry, but if you are going to be the super well-known influential person, we need you to use your influence for good. We do. Period. Full stop. And if you don't want to do that, sure, go home and stop being famous. Stop having a podcast or whatever you're doing. If you're not going to try to push the envelope forward in a positive way, like we don't have time for you. Our society has enough troublemakers as it is.
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me rant. I have such strong feelings. And I know you do too, and I love it. Yeah.
No, I've never been afraid to speak my mind, especially about cybersecurity stuff. And you're right. It is important, and more of the people with the influence should be talking. Tanya, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Please take some time to let everyone know where to find you online, how to follow you, but more importantly, where to buy your new book and your old book.
Okay, so if you look up SheHacksPurple, that's me everywhere. So on YouTube, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, everywhere, SheHacksPurple, all one word, that is me. And so if you go to SheHacksPurple.ca and you click on books, you can learn about both my books and see the many, many places that you can buy both of them. So you can go to Amazon. So there's Amazon India, there's Amazon Australia, there's Amazon Canada. So whichever country that you use Amazon in, you can buy it there. You can buy it from Barnes & Noble, from Indigo, or you can buy it directly from the publisher, from Wiley. Wiley's going to charge you shipping. It's just a fact of life. And Amazon's probably not. I get paid the same no matter where you buy it. If you have a Security Champions program and you want to buy 10 or more copies, send me an email at Tanya, Tanya, at SheHacksPurple.ca, and I will get you a discount from my publisher. They'll give you like 20% off, I believe, if you order from them. And if you want, I'll sign them all and shove stickers in them. So I do this
Awesome.
a lot. I do this a lot where Security Champions programs, they're like, we want to buy like 40 of your book. I'm like, cool. If you ship them to me, I'll sign them, shove stickers in them, and send them to you. And you just need to pay the shipping. It just needs to not cost me anything. And I'll just give you lots of free stickers. And lately I'm making silly keychains on my 3D printer. So I'll send some of those too. But yeah, please consider checking out my book. I know I'm biased, but I think it's very good and I think it will help. And yeah, check out my YouTube and my whatever. And if you need someone to do some security training, I am your person. And I work at SemGrep, and you should probably look at their things too.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I will put all of those links and to the email in the video description as well. We'll also have them on the screen, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a great interview. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Oh my gosh, me too, Tiberius. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.